Good afternoon. Aloha, everyone. It's so nice to see real bodies here in front of us. Welcome, and to those in Zoom land as well. We're convening the committees on water and land and agriculture and environment here in conference room 229. This hearing is being streamed live online. We will be taking testimony from folks who are in person as well as online. In the event we are cut off due to technical difficulties, we will have to abruptly end this hearing and reconvene to discuss any outstanding business at the end of our agenda on Friday, March 18th, starting at 1 p.m. Hopefully, we won't do that, but we'll hope to have a nice discussion today. Members, and welcome the Committee on Agriculture and Environment. Happy to have you with our joint hearings. Let's proceed then with HB 1497, House Draft 1. This is relating to invasive species. It requires the Division of Forestry and Wildlife of DLNR Resources to establish a 2-year pilot program to remove invasive species in and around Wai'ole Stream on Oahu. Okay, I see David Smith there. DLNR.
Hey, good afternoon. Good afternoon, David Smith, Administrator with the Division of Forest and Wildlife. We'll stand on our written testimony and support with comments. Thank you.
Okay, mahalo. Lemana Damante, please come forward. You have your mask on. Mahalo.
Good afternoon, Chair and Chair Gabbard and members of the committee. Can you hear me? We stand. My name is Leimana Damate. I'm the Nuna Alakai, or Executive Director for the Hawaii State Ahamoku. And we support this bill, House Bill 1497, House Draft. And we've been working with the people from Wai'ole, and they're in full support. So we stand in strong support. If you have any questions, I will be available.
Okay. Mahalo. Thank you. Thank you very much. Members, if there's any questions you have of anyone, including Dave Smith, let me know. Senator Revere.
Thank you, Chair. Dave Smith, please. Hi, Dave.
Yes, sir. How's it?
Yes, I see the testimony says the DLNR has comments and that DLNR would contract with watershed partners and invasive species basically to research the feasibility of establishing a pilot project. Could you clarify how do you interpret this bill then? Because it would be my interpretation that the purpose of this bill is to get busy clearing some invasive species. But your testimony seems to indicate it would be to figure out a study.
Well, as written, it's just not implementable. We're not the primary, streams aren't our primary responsibility. That's county for flood control. And then a lot of it's private land, and we can't just go into people's private land and start working. So we fully support the concept of improved forest management. And we do have a statewide albizia control plan, and there's a lot of potential here, but honestly, we can't just move in and start working on other people's land. So
although it's all state land in Wai'ole.
Some of it is state land. Again, we'd have to check out the feasibility on where we could actually work. Would it make an actual difference? I'm a big proponent of improved forest management, and we do need to get in front of the albizia situation, especially as it pertains to some of its impacts on flood control. But I haven't walked all of it and looked at all the maps in terms of land ownership and what is actually coming off of state land and all that. So, I mean, we want to do something that would be impactful, right? We want to make a positive difference, and so we would be all for that. But and we have good people. I mean, over at the Watershed Partnerships. One of the gentlemen over there that's running it actually helped write that albizia control plan. BISC over on the Big Island Invasive Species Committee has done a lot of Albizu control on Hawaii Island. So, you know, it's not out of the realm of possibility, but we certainly would have to scope it out before we promised that we were going to go in there and do a pilot project.
Is there a way that this bill would be, that you would prefer this bill be rewritten then to move the ball forward? Because I'm just, it seems to me that there's a disconnect between what this bill is attempting to do and as you've described your, you know, the realities of doing it.
Well, I think, you know, that was just our comments. I guess we could come up with some language, but basically it would be, you know, what I would like to do is quantify what the actual problem is. I mean, just because an albizia tree got stuck on a bridge and caused some flooding and this state land upstream happens to have some albizia trees, you know, we don't really know what happened there. And some of the patterns that we're seeing is actually private landowners cutting down albizia, dicing it up into chunks, and then when the river floods, it carries all that stuff downhill. So whatever we're doing, we want to try to address the problem. You know, again, I have no problem with going in and trying to do something, but that's why, you know, our watershed partnership groups, like the Kolau Mountains Watershed Partnership in this particular case, might be the appropriate folks to get engaged, because they already have relationships and working MOU and whatnot with different private landowners, and you know, we haven't done enough research on it. So, you know, I think the looking at the feasibility of it is a worthwhile thing.
Would it be worth going directly to invasive species and watershed partners then and just kind of bypassing your division? I know they're kind of attached under you, but.
Well, not attached so much as we provide them a lot. Well, we do provide them a lot of funding, and we do have the watershed partnership program. So I think it would be a proper conduit, you know, to run it through DLNR, and then we would sub it out. A lot of the funding for invasive species and for watershed partnerships gets funneled through DLNR and out to the ISCs and the watershed partnership program. So it's a good way for us to be able to get money on the ground quickly with organizations that are specifically focused on that. Whereas, you know, for instance, our Oahu branch for DOFA, the forestry program, would have a hard time standing up that level of effort. It takes a long time to get more civil servants and all that sort of thing. So I think working with, and I'm not sure that's how it would go. We can put it out to bid too, for getting another contractor to come in and look at the feasibility. And, you know, there are private forestry consultants that could help us out with that. I think this is a positive trend, is looking at improved forest management as a way to improve forest health, as a way to address, you know, climate change impacts and whatnot. We've got some projects that we started out as feasibility projects in Waianae Kai that have turned into full-blown reforestation projects because they demonstrated the ability.
Well, Dave,
Yeah.
We understand, but we're on the issue of Waiho'ole. But this
Right.
is in your court, and you have 2 years to do this.
Mhm.
And so do the best you can. You will be having an appropriation with this program.
Okay.
And hence, if it goes on to the next year, you're having difficulty, but let us know, come back and report to us how you're doing as well. And the committee certainly has an opportunity to converse with you folks next year, and we can follow up. But, you know, you got 2 years to work on it, have the community involvement as well. So I think.
That's fine. Thank
That's
you.
fine?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, we can do
Any
that.
further discussions? Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Marigold Zoll, and she asked, I'm sure she's a constituent out there in the district, wants to add some comments. And she did say she'll be on Zoom. Marigold, are you there? Okay, let's move on to an individual, Lexi Ciliado, on Zoom land.
Oh, sorry. Good afternoon, Senator Chairs and Vice Chairs, as well as members of the committees. My name is Lexi Sliato. I am a sixth grader at Waiahole Elementary School, and I have been in this community for 7 years. I am here to testify in strong support of House Bill 1497 relating to invasive species. I care about this bill because this is a problem happening in my community. I know many people that live in Waiahole Valley will be affected by this if these invasive species don't get cleared. I also know many people who have helped me out, so now it's my turn to do the same. I am in strong support of this bill because these invasive species can and will take over the Waiahole aquifers, and then they won't be able to get recharged. If aquifers can't get recharged, this will cause and major damage to the residents of Waiahole Valley when it storms. This could also cause flooding to the school, and then we won't be able to learn. In Waiahole Valley, many residents do kaula farming, and this is another reason why I strongly encourage the bill to go through. With all the flooding that will be caused, it can damage a lot of the lo'i patches, and kaula farming is something that is very important to us. The reason why I also strongly support House Bill 1497 is because if the albizia tree doesn't get cut down, it could damage houses and it could block the stream, leading to once again flooding. This tree can grow up to 15 feet a year. Branches can fall without any warning because it is so brittle. This can hurt others because we won't know when branches fall. For example, what happens if a farmer is working and a branch falls on him or her? This would be tragic for his or her community, family, and also the community. Again, I am in strong support of this bill. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. Have a great day. Mahalo.
Thank you, Lexi. Good girl. We appreciate you taking time to assist your community. Continue to do the good job.
Thank you.
We have members, couple of more people sent testimony and comments. So total 3 in support, no opposition, and 3 that sent in comments. Let's move on then to HB 1769, House Draft 1, and this is relating to rapid Ohia death. This is an appropriation bill to fund DLNR to study and combat rapid Ohia death in the state. Let's see. DLNR, we got Leimana Damate from Ahamoku.
Thank you, Chair. Again, good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Ahamoku is very concerned about Ohia. As you know, it's a sacred tree. It's sacred to the Native Hawaiian people. And we feel it's very important that DLNR has been trying their hardest, and they have done good work, but it's not enough because Ohia it still hasn't been stopped. I live in Ka'u on Hawaii Island, and I live on the 2,500 foot level in natural lands. I don't even have neighbors, lucky, but it's beautiful. And I have beautiful Ohia trees in my yard. And we don't have rapid Ohia yet, but above us, we do. And so it's just a matter of time. And I hear this from all kupuna on all islands. It's starting to reach everywhere. So we need more help in trying to take care of it. Hilo is taking a hit on it. So, you know, we hope this bill will go through, and I'll be able to answer any questions if needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Mahalo. Farm Bureau, Brian Miyamoto.
Good afternoon, Chair Inouye, Chair
Hello.
Gabbard, Vice Chair Keith Augeron, members of the committees. Brian Miyamoto here on behalf of the Hawaii Farm Bureau. We'll stand on a written testimony in support of this very important measure. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Mahalo. University of Hawaii, Nicholas Comerford, doctor, you're there. Aloha.
Aloha, chairs, vice chairs, and members of the committee. The University of Hawaii testifies in support of this measure, and we are available for questions. We stand on our testimony. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, and thank you for continuing the work as well. Hopefully we can get you a little more dollars to continue the program. Mahalo. Dave Smith, DLNR.
Yeah, how's it? David Smith again, Administrator, Division of Forest and Wildlife. We stand on with strong support on this measure. Thank you.
Okay, mahalo. I guess Robert Hoff is in support as well from DLNR. Testifying for the university, this is the coordinating group on the alien species, the pet species. Christy Martin, aloha.
Aloha chairs, vice chairs, members of the committees. Christy Martin with the Coordinating Group on Alien Pest Species, CGAPS. We're in strong support of this measure and just wanted to note that, there's never been a successful eradication of a forest fungal disease like this anywhere in the world. And it is heartbreaking. And so some of the things that are being funded, hopefully through this bill, are reducing the spread. Some of that is via fencing and removing of ungulates because we know that the pathogen can enter through the wounds in trees. I also wanted to note that in areas that have been hard hit by rapid ohia death, we see the death of the parent trees, but there's a lot of seeds in the seed bank still, but we're not seeing seedling recruitment. We're not seeing baby ohia, primarily because weeds are taking over that landscape. And I just wanted to flag that as an issue for another day. We're going to need to do something to save space for hopeful ohia or at least other native species. So thank you so much for considering this bill. It is very important and we're in strong support. Mahalo.
Thank you, Christy. Members, we do have communications from others as well. We have support 16, no opposition, and 1 comments. And before we continue on to the next one, anyone has a question of any of
I have
the
a question.
testifying? Yes, Senator Agaran, Vice Chair, to whom?
Dave Smith.
Dave?
Mr.
So Dave, your testimony mentions the original proposed appropriation of 1.7, but there's language that you said additional funding of 500,000. So are you saying you need 2.2?
Yeah, ultimately, I think Rob on. Rob, you want to answer that? He's got better numbers.
Sure, no problem. Yes, there have been a lot of detections on the island of Kauai in the past year, and so we're really trying to increase capacity there. So beyond, continuing ongoing work, and also just the early detection surveys that we are continuing on statewide, but they're especially important for the islands of Oahu and Maui Nui, where we haven't found Psoriasis leukoihea, the most dangerous form of rapid ohia death. So the additional 500,000, I think, would allow us to increase capacity overall in the state rather than to continue what we're doing now currently.
So just to be clear, are you saying you need the 500,000 or you would like the additional 500,000?
I would say we need it to do the work that needs to be done. We're still at this point unclear on the level of federal support we'll be receiving. So I don't want to be too conservative and say we don't need something when we do need it with the current level of knowledge of what our funding is.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I'm happy that our Vice Chair is also responsible for our CIPs with the Senate. And so bear in mind, DLNR, you're going to have lots more questions from our Senator. Okay, members, any more discussion? Hearing none, let's continue on with the Waterland lead on this measure before we turn it over to agriculture. HB 2431, this is relating to sustainable food systems, and it establishes the food systems working group within the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development. Okay, Department of Agriculture.
Aloha chairs and vice chairs and members
Good
of the
afternoon.
committee. Good afternoon. Phyllis Shimabukuro Geyser, Chairperson, Hawaii Department of Agriculture. We stand on our written testimony supporting the intent, and we defer to the Office of Planning Sustainable Development. Thank you.
Thank you. And members, anytime you have a question, please let us know. Farm Bureau, Brian.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committees. Brian Miyamoto here on behalf of the Hawaii Farm Bureau. We'll also stand on a written testimony in support, and we look forward to working with the working group on coming up with improving our food systems there. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Mahalo. Okay. Ahomoku, Leimana Demate.
Thank you, Chair. Leimana Damate with the Hawaii State Ahamoku. Thank you for the opportunity to give comments on this bill. We do support the bill. There is a concern that we support the bill, but the working group, makeup of the working group is made up of government representatives, state and county agencies, the University of Hawaii representatives, and food service representatives. It does not have a place for representatives from the Native Hawaiian community. And food sustainability is paramount to Native Hawaiians. And they're expert in their ahupua'a on the resources that are needed to grow all of these. So we ask that a friendly amendment be made that the Native Hawaiian representatives that are going to be flagged for this committee have knowledge in the traditional cultural practices of mahi'ai and lawai'a. That's agriculture and ocean, because food sustainability is also impacted on the ocean. And that they are aware that sustainability of food systems differ on the islands because of the differences in the natural and cultural resources. So they have to look a little bit closer at the makeup of each place where the sustainability food programs are going to be. Okay, so thank you very much.
Can I ask you
Of course.
just a question for the comments with regards to the bill itself? We do have, if you look on page 3, of course, from the Department of Native Hawaiian Health out of the university is fine. But there's also 2 members of the Native Hawaiian community to be selected by the director of OP, and provided that at least one of the members shall be a resident of a county other than city and county of Honolulu. So you think we need more? And perhaps maybe we can work with Office of Planning and see if you can submit, to us a name that you would recommend.
We could. I don't think you need more.
Okay.
The 2 members of the Native Hawaiian community on number 8.
Yeah.
On the page.
So they're
Right.
represented.
What we're asking is that when they are chosen,
Uh-huh.
they have a specific, they're knowledgeable about how the food sustainability works on each island.
Okay, maybe what we can do is
Yeah.
put it on the committee report.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
make a recommendation to OP.
Okay,
Great.
all right.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Mahalo. Let's see, Hawaii Farmers Union, United Hunter. Are you you're on Zoom. Aloha. Unmute yourself.
Hunter is in
Oh,
person, Chair.
okay, okay. Then the food industry, I guess that's them on Zoom. Hawaii Food Industry Associate, Lauren Zerbel. Mahalo.
Hi, good afternoon, chairs, vice chairs, and members of the committee. I'm Alexis Chapman on behalf of HFIA. We stand on our testimony in support, and we are happy to be part of the group, and we look forward to participating in it, and I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Food and Policy Internship, Brian, John.
Aloha mai kako.
Aloha.
Good afternoon, chairs. Gabbard, vice chairs Agaran and Nishihara, and members of the Senate committees on water and land and agriculture and environment. My name is Ioane. I'm a lead advocate at Hawaii Food Plus Policy, and I'm here to express our strong support for HB 2431 to create a sustainable food systems working group within the Office of Planning. We believe we must take action as soon as possible to develop a plan for the creation of a more resilient and sustainable food economy. Food systems are extremely complex networks of interaction that involve the production, processing, shipping, marketing, and consumption of food. Food systems are tied to climate change issues, environmental degradation, technology, economies, social problems, health, culture, and probably most importantly, identity. Some things to consider for improving this bill. We would like to ensure appropriate members of the community be included in the working group, particularly expert Lokoi'a, Mahi'ai, and Lawai'a Kanaka Maoli practitioners. We believe these are the most appropriate stewards or managers of land and sea and land-sea continuums. Considering the history of theft and abuse of aina and irresponsible agricultural practices, as well as current issues with pesticide use and inappropriate relationships between chemical companies, politicians, and farming, we feel the creation of this working group is extremely necessary to create real positive change toward a more vibrant and fulfilling food system in Hawaii. As the world is increasingly witnessing and feeling the effects of anthropogenic climate change, cannot leave our food system choices to be made by business interests alone. Mahalo for your time. Fix our food system.
Okay, mahalo. Members, we do have others that have submitted testimonies. Total support of this measure is 18, no opposition, and 2 comments. Any other questions you may have of the presenters? Okay, hearing none, then agriculture, it's your show.
Okay.
Senator.
Mahalo,
Okay.
Chair. Moving on to the AEN/Waterland. 3 measures, HB 1705 HD1, relating to ag park leases, allows the Department of Ag to extend the agricultural park lease of any lessee who holds a lease with a remaining term of 15 years or less, provided that the land covered by the lease is 25 acres or less and located in a county with a population of less than 500,000. First up is Department of Ag.
Aloha chairs, vice chairs, and members of the committee. The Department of Agriculture stands on its written testimony. We respectfully oppose the measure. And as we stated in our testimony, we currently have approximately 243 people on our wait list that are interested in receiving property, under our management. So we're available to answer any questions. Mahalo.
Mahalo, Phyllis. Next is Brian Miyamoto from the Hawaii Farm Bureau.
Thank you, Chair Gabbard, Chair Inouye, Vice Chair Nishihara, Vice Chair Keith Agron, and members of the committees. Brian Miyamoto here on behalf of the Hawaii Farm Bureau. You have a written testimony in front of you. We do support this measure. We do support new farmers coming on to state land. However, we want to continue to support those farmers who are already established themselves, multi-generational farmers, who some have finally got the succession plan. Their children are coming back. And we want to encourage and support those farmers that have a proven track record and allow them to continue farm. The Hawaii Farm Bureau has been strong advocates of the state increasing their inventory of agricultural lands, buying some of these private lands that are up for sale so that we can encourage more new farmers and expansion of our current farmers onto these lands. But again, we want to emphasize we support new farmers being able to get these agricultural leases, which are very favorable to our farmers, long-term leases, they have water. But we don't want to forget about those farmers who are established and continue to farm and can continue to contribute to our GDP, to our ag economy. So we ask that you support this measure. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Mahalo, Brian. Next is Brian Cow from Department of Ag. Ag Resource Management Division.
Excuse me, Chair. This is Phyllis Shimabukuro-Geyser. Mr. Kao is available to answer questions.
Okay.
On behalf of the department. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that's all the testifiers. Members, are there any questions?
Sure.
Let's start off over here.
No,
Oh.
Senator Papel.
I heard you saying that it's for helping out with the farmers that is already on the leases. How much of the farms that have these leases on any of the public lands or ceded land or anything to do with any of the Hawaiian lands that we've been talking about with lease extensions? How much of these old farmers, because I know I understand the bill in the beginning of having the new farmers acquiring new properties and stuff like that. That is great for the state to do that, but how much of the old farmers or the farmers that is on property now is on any of the public lands or any Hawaiian land?
Thank you for the question, Senator. I believe that question is probably better suited for the State Department of Agriculture, Agri-Resource Management. They would have that data for you,
Yeah.
Senator.
Thank you. Let's call, Senator, let's call Brian. Brian of Phyllis. Brian Powell. Are you going to respond, Phyllis or Brian?
I'll wait for Brian to provide a specific number, but in the meantime, until he gets access, recently
Phyllis, there's one thing I can ask you. There are two types of farm leases. So can you explain to the senator and to all of us the difference between your regular ag leases and the agriculture park leases, which is what we're talking about in HB 1705.
Thank you for the question, Senator. I think since Brian Cowell has not been able to enter from Zoom, if Morris Atta can do a great job about explaining that.
Sure. Oh, great. Thanks, Morris.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So basically, the ag park leases are designed primarily to meet the need of the smaller or newer farmers, and the concept of ag parks were somewhat to be an incubator for to bring in additional farmers into the industry, knowing the need for for increased food production. So that's the reason why ag parks generally, and this is not universally true, but generally are on parcels that are small, like between 5 and 10 acres. And it's tailored to meet the needs of these newer farmers that don't need a whole lot of land. And because of that, because of the kind of the underlying intent of getting newer farmers farming experience, the intention is actually, hopefully they can expand out from the experience that they're acquiring under the Ag Park program, and then move on to larger parcels of land or different lands. And with the experience and the assistance that they've received under the Ag Park program, move on to become established farm producers on their own. That's not necessarily been the case in terms of a lot of the tenants on our Ag Park leases have been there for a long time, and so now they're I guess we're heading to a time when quite a few of them are getting closer to the end of their maximum terms. And I think the reason for the request and the bill is that people are finding that, well, we really want to continue farming, and so they're asking for additional time and hopefully to extend what has proven to be a working, successful, productive farm. That sort of puts us in a conundrum, because while we definitely want to support working farms and farms that are contributing to our food situation, we also are faced with the pressure to increase farming to meet our food security, food sustainability goals, to encourage new farmers to come into the market. And that's where, as a department, we're somewhat, caught in an awkward position. And our non-ag park program basically is open to everyone, and that hopefully some of these ag park lessees would move into our non-ag park, program, provided there's sufficient vacancies that allows them to move on, or hopefully they can find alternatives such as purchasing their own ag lands or expanding into the private arena and establishing farming operations if the finances work out. So that's kind of basically the overall, I guess, difference and the policy reasons behind some of our comments regarding this bill.
Okay, Morris, in relation to what you just said, there was a testifier who said there are more than enough public lands that are presently left vacant or unattended. Many of the leases that were awarded many years ago are still not being used in agriculture. A viable solution which would benefit our industry is to assign those lands to the potential new farmers. Can you give us an idea? Is there a number of those lands that are not in farming right now?
Yeah, I would have to defer to Brian because I don't have those statistics before me, but I would note that a lot of the vacant lands, the ones that we have often come with certain kinds of constraints to farming, whether it's the geographic conditions or, like we have a lot in Waimanalo that is heavily forested that has been vacant for a while, that needs to be cleared in order for it can even be farmed. And most people will look at it and just go, forget it, I can't afford to clear that, the land. But also, I will note that oftentimes when we've heard that comment from the public or there has been a confusion as to who is managing those vacant lands that they've identified, because DOA is not the only land manager for these ag lands. Oftentimes they're DLNR controlled lands or DHHL controlled lands that people would want to see under our management, but are not necessarily so. But I apologize that I don't have the exact statistics. I know our vacancy rate is very low on our DOA managed lands, and hopefully Brian can provide greater detail.
Okay, we have another question from Senator Nagaran.
Yeah, so Morris or Brian, I guess if you can give a little bit more context what we're talking about here. Ag park leases can be a maximum of 55 years. So under this bill, someone that had a 55-year lease in an ag park would be getting up to 85 years then, right?
Well, we're kind of questioning the language, whether or not there's, due to the language, whether or not you can continue to renew even beyond that, given the way it was written.
So you're thinking that when they get back down to 15, they could get another 30, is what you're saying?
Yeah, well, we're kind of concerned about that being a possible interpretation of the way the language was written. And that goes to our concerns about, allowing private interests to occupy public lands indefinitely.
Well, but Morris, I think when I read the testimony that Chair Gabbard referred to, I believe that in context, that was talking about ag park leases where the tenant has not implemented any farming. So how many of those leases exist that there doesn't seem to be any agricultural activity happening?
Right. And that's where I'm hoping to get Brian's input, because I don't have the specific statistics at hand. And
is that Brian on the
Yeah,
screen?
that looks like him.
Yeah. Good afternoon, chairs, members of the committee. This is Brian Cow, the administrator for the Ag Resource Management Division of the Department of Agriculture. Our vacancy rate for both of our land programs is somewhat less than 5%. So we really don't have a lot of vacant land available. What Deputy Atta has alluded to is completely correct, that the vacant lands that we generally do have available exist in places that have underlying conditions. For instance, one of the ag parks that we have significant vacancies in is our Hawai'i Ag Park. And that park has less than favorable soil conditions, as well as.
What island, Brian? What island and what community?
Big Island.
Okay.
Yeah, it has underlying conditions such as lava tubes, poor shallow soils, irrigation. It's just kind of far from everything. So there tends to be less demand for those types of lands. We continually are advertising those lands for interest, and slowly, we do get applicants for them, but they're nowhere near as popular as our other lands, say Waimanalo or Kahuku or something like that, or even Waimea. So I can only speak for the lands that the Department of Ag maintains and controls as Department of Ag lands. I'm guessing, and I know it's a horrible thing to do, I'm guessing that potentially what the other testifier might have been referring to or including is, the umbrella or the universe of state lands, or even just the universe of agriculturally zoned lands that may or may not be available through private parties or other entities such as the county or something like that.
Well, actually, the question that's coming up is, do you have lands in the ag parks that are leased but are not in production? I mean, that's the question.
Certainly, we do have some tenants that are in transition, either through assignments because of hardships or deaths in the family, sicknesses, inability to continue their farming operation, and those are in transition. And the department works with them on their assignment requests. For other tenants that are not in compliance with their lease, we are in active communication with them, letting them know that they are not in compliance and asking them for plans to bring themselves into compliance. And if all of those communications are unsuccessful, then we unfortunately end up requesting termination of the lease.
But Brian, this measure is exactly what it says on page 3 about any of the leases that are currently in production, and they only have the remaining 15 years or less. But if they already want to continue their lease, this is the subject matter of this measure, extensions. And so if they're a viable farm activity on the lots, what's the issue with the opposition?
I believe
I don't get it, because that's what we're looking at. Those that are already there, that have a commitment, put in all the infrastructure, and all they're saying is that they want to hold a lease with the remaining 15 years or less, that you have an opportunity to extend the term for an additional 30 years, providing that, and you have the restrictions as well, 25 years or less. So I can't see the rationale. Another thing you have to understand, each island are different. You got lots of land on Big Island. And if you're in particular talking about Kanaeva farm lots, which I believe the testifier is from, who I know very well, have a good production, wants to continue. So I can't see the rationale. We can go on and on and on and talk about no different than any lands under DLNR that we're hoping to transfer over to you folks, DOA, and make sure we have viable lands available for agriculture. But anyway, this measure talks about the extensions of the leases. And if in good faith, the application goes before you, and if you see non-productive lands and they want an extension, you can certainly deny them and take the course as it is. So I just don't see the rationale of opposition.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Casio?
I have a chair. Thank you, Chair. I have a question for Department of Agriculture too. What is your assessment as far as percentage of food being grown for local consumption in accordance with, the state priorities of food security on these particular, in general for your ag park lands that are up for renewal according to this measure?
We don't track the type of production on the land. The rules allow for diversified agricultural use, which includes everything from forestry all the way up through food production. We don't generally track the percentages of, say, ornamental flowers versus leafy vegetables or anything like that. We may be able to look into working with one of our other divisions to see if they might have some sort of metrics for you and get back to you on that. I can't promise anything, but I'm definitely offered to look into it for you.
Okay, well, one of the things I'm trying to get at too is in reading your testimony, which is very clear in terms of trying to support new farmers for these leases as opposed to extending. I guess the question is, did the leases in the current leases were aware when they signed the lease that it was a 55-year lease?
It's a difficult question for me to answer. I'm not in their position. I would like to say that from a business perspective, I would like to assume that they were, but that's an assumption. I want to reiterate something that Deputy Atta said earlier. And the department is in an unfortunate situation of having significant interest on both sides, the new farmer side, as well as the existing farmer side. And we completely understand the desire, and we do support the desire to continue legacy farms and recognize when a successful farm wants to continue. At the same time, we receive, according to our testimony, we have a over 200-person essential wait list on new lands, farmers for new lands, or not new lands, but for vacant lands if that's available. So it's an unfortunate situation that the department finds itself in, where our inventory is not adequate to fill, all of the requests. So, I regret that the testimony has somewhat become us versus them, and it's really not the department's intent to do so or act so. We do recognize both sides, and it's unfortunate that it's coming out that way.
And it seems as though with this particular measure, though, that there would be established lease extensions that could potentially allow leases to remain on the land indefinitely, and basically in the sense of similar to ownership, and preclude others access to public land.
That is one of the areas that we have been discussing and trying to clarify. We're not completely clear on that matter, but it is a topic of discussion.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Senator Nishihara.
Yeah, just a question to Morris. Morris, we tend to get hung up sometimes on what the governor's direction to get 20% or more agricultural production going. If we tend to try to make it into an argument about whether it's food production for local use versus production in general, I think we kind of get away from what we're trying to do to encourage more farmers to go, who go into whether they're doing nursery crops or whether it's actually food that that's served to the general community. My relatives, my cousins, were growing cabbages up in Maui, up on and sometimes the production of those things varies with the markets overall, that it's not a productive crop in that sense sometimes. So we try to retain the best lands we can for food production as just food production in general, or nursery crops, or any of those. Yes, now we come down to about whether or not people who are doing it should get an extension on their leases. I think need to be cognizant of that. What is the benefit of extension of those leases? And it seems to me that you have a productive operation going, and they need more time on their leases because they think they're shown that they can do it, then maybe they should be granted those things, those leases. That's how I look at it. So anyway, what's your view on it, Morris?
Yeah, I understand, the dynamics and the kind of the tension between the types of agriculture that occurs and whether or not, I think what you're talking about or, referencing is devising some type of preference for if the policy or the goals are food production, then maybe we should be creating some form of preference in a lot of these land-based decision-making to ensure that we actually meet our food security, food production goals. It's something that we as a department have not set. And, I'm aware that there's been, those kinds of discussions occurring, at the legislature, from our, governor's office and all that. But we're not aware that there's any direction to actually, I guess, provide that preference yet. I know there are pieces of legislation that was directed at locally grown food production for local consumption. And it's a policy, I guess, direction that we have never, I guess we haven't implemented it because we have not seen that specific policy guidance, directing our actions yet. Even though I agree with you totally. I mean, if your goal is to, create food security and food sustainability, then maybe you should be focusing on food production as opposed to everything else. But that's not something that has been articulated or put in place as far as I'm aware of.
Senator Rhodes?
Chair, for DOA, whoever would like to answer. So in terms of your budget, if this bill were not to pass, do you anticipate that you would get more revenues from, I guess what happens when the lease runs out is you put them up for auction, is that correct?
Should I take that? I think one of the points that we were raising was that we're not necessarily putting productive farms out of business because as a practical matter, the existing lessee has an equal opportunity with everyone else to bid on that same property and or other properties.
But what happens at the end of the lease? What's the procedure at the end of the lease without this bill?
I don't know if Brian wants to go into the details about the actual termination, but basically, the lessee is aware that termination is coming up. There are discussions that are had with the lessee and the department.
How do you dispose of the land once the lease runs out? What's the general process? Is it an RFP, an RFI, an auction? What is it?
The lands are in the case of disposing of a newly vacated lot, the lands are appraised and minimum lease rent upset is identified through a certified land appraiser, and that parcel goes out for offers to submit to the Department of Ag.
So as a budgetary matter for DOA, do you expect to make more money off these lands if you go through with the current process? Or is
Quite
it?
honestly, no, because in an extension situation, generally the same thing happens where appraisal is done and the appraisal number is presented to the existing tenant for them to agree or disagree with for the next however many years, the term of the lease, either renewal or whatnot. So any increase that we may get based on it going out for an offer type situation generally tends to be somewhat minimal. I wouldn't say negligent, but not enough for us to.
Okay, so basically
into
the bottom line is you don't view it as a budget issue for the department. It doesn't matter to you. So with your indulgence, Chair, I have one other question. What is, I mean, what's the state's interest in, why do we care who's on the land? You know, it's zoned agriculture. People can use it for whatever you can use on agricultural land. And why would we pick favorites in that situation? I mean, I know you're opposed to the bill, so, but I'm just looking for the rationale.
Opposition of the bill, if I understand, I don't want to speak for, on top of Morris or Phyllis, but the opposition, like I say, and Deputy Atta said, is it's an unfortunate position that we're in. We don't support.
I get that, but why do we care one way or the other who's on the land if they've gone through the process and they won the bid or whatever they have to do?
Well, right now we don't. As long as they're qualified as far as farming goes, a qualified farming operation, then we don't care.
Okay. Thanks, Chair. Appreciate it.
Yeah, just so it's clear, we still haven't answered my original question is, how many of these leases actually were for 55 years? Is it a matter of course the DOA issues ag park leases at 55 years?
No. Generally, the leases start off between 25 and 35 years. And
so technically, people might have another 20 years if they qualify for an extension anyway, right?
Yes.
Okay, so is it the 30 years that's a problem then? I mean, if we said 20, we'd just be implementing what you're already authorized to do, right?
Yeah, my understanding of the bill is geared for operations that have already gotten extensions to 55 years and wish to go beyond that.
Are you sure? I mean, have you looked at, I mean, this bill applies to the neighbor islands only, right? The way it's written. So what's the number of leases that would be consistent with what you just said?
I do not have the exact number. It's something we look into, but
we're in the middle of the session. I mean, this bill went through the House already, and it's gone through 2 committees, actually 3. How many committees on the House side? 3 committees. 3. So you've had 3 times to testify on this.
We can get that number to you.
Can I interject a note on that though? I think what Brian said is correct, that the bill was generated due to lessees that are nearing the end of their maximum 55-year term. I'm not aware of anybody who had been issued a shorter 25 or 35-year term with the available maximum terms saying anything about this. And the reason for that is because by statute and under our current practices, extensions are fairly easily obtained for those people who have remaining years under their terms. So we already have a process in place where those kinds of tenants are getting extensions as a matter of ordinary practice. The problem that's being raised in this bill are specific to those tenants who are nearing the maximum term, and they're feeling that they need or want additional time beyond the maximum term.
Excuse me, Senator, can I just add that, I have been contacted by one of those farmers that's in the situation where they're nearing the 55-year maximum. And, what our program has been able to do is we've provided, a person in that situation with a list of vacant lots under our management that is very close to where their existing operation is. And we've also provided them contacts to other state agencies that have vacant agricultural lots in the nearby area. So we do try to work with those type of situations, providing them information, so they can consider nearby properties under the state's ownership to relocate to or consider expanding to.
All right,
Just,
Senator Favela.
I know you don't have this information right now, but what I would want to know, in the 55-year lease on these farmers or people that is acting farming, how much of those leases the original leasee to that lease? Two, they knew, and I heard this earlier here, and it's very right now in my brain, on these new incubators farmers. So how are we gonna have new incubating farmers if none of the farmers that is on the land now want to leave the land, or even like what Senator Rose says, is willing to put in another bid and have a competitive bid for this incubators farmers? Then we're not gonna have, so let's just say the guy farming tomatoes, but not all his farm is tomatoes. The rest of the home is maybe get machines on them. I mean, we got the percentage, but this guy want to come and probably use the whole land for tomatoes. So isn't that doubling our production of fruits, of vegetables? I mean, these are the things that we don't know. You guys don't have the answers. When Senator Keith Agaran asked about how much of these guys is actually using the land, you guys don't know none of this stuff, and it went through the whole house yet. So you guys don't know the answer, and it would be nice to give any of us the answers, because I want to know how much of the leases was sold within the 55 years. And maybe the guys who bought the lease 20 years or 25 years down the line wants to have another 50 years so that they can be there longer. But I think this kind of bill to extend these guys who's on the land is becoming possessions, not actually doubling our vegetable or agricultural. Is more of a possession than actually doing something good with the fruit and vegetable or even the food industry. Because I'm sitting here and listening, you guys talking about how important to have new farmers come in and do the incubating thing. But then, sorry, incubators, we don't have land for you though. We're gonna extend all the guys who's on the land, give all extension leases, they're gonna have them for another 25 years. Maybe you can wait in 25 years, and maybe you can incubate then. I don't think that is fair. They knew that their lease was gonna end up at 55 years. They should have made preparations to expand, like how the other gentleman said, to move to a bigger farm and staying on a 10-acre incubator farm. You see what I'm saying? Because then we're not helping them increase their farming ability. We're actually enabling them to expand their 10-acre incubator at the time 55 years ago to move on. So I just don't think that is fair for new farmers that wants to farm on a 10-acre lot, have an opportunity to possess these lots or bid on these lots going forward, knowing that these guys, and you guys don't even know how much of them is actually farming the land. So that's something that you guys should have for us, because listening to this, the guys who want to be farmers will never be farmers because they will never get land. They'll never have an opportunity to put in a bid. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. All right, we shall move on. We have 3 in support of that bill, 1705, and 1 opposed, and 3 comments. Moving on to the next measure, House Bill 1721, relating to feral animal management, requires the Department of Land and Natural Resources and Department of Ag to collaborate on feral animal management. First up is Department of Ag.
Mahalo chairs and vice chairs and members of the committee. We stand on our written testimony and appreciating the intent and offering comments on how we can support. And we did note that we no longer have a state meat inspection program. All of the meat inspection is done at the federal level. Mahalo.
Thank you, Phyllis. Next is Leimana Damate from Hawai'i State Ahamoku.
Thank you, Chair. Aloha, my name is Leimana Damate at Hawai'i State Ahamoku. You have a written testimony before you. Stand on that testimony and we'll be able to answer questions if you need it.
Mahalo.
Thank you, Chair.
Next is Micah Munakata from Ulupono Initiative.
Afternoon, Chair Gabbard, Vice Chair Nishihara, Chair Inouye, Vice Chair Keith Agron, members of the committee. Michael Munikata on behalf of the Ulupono Initiative. You have our testimony before you. We support the intent of this measure. I think it comes from a good place to collaborate on feral animal management. Our comments today are basically around its effects on agricultural production. We find this through our outreach with some of the producers and organizations across the state over the last year to be one of the top issues that seems to be unchecked. There are potentially some federal programs that are out there. However, local producers here have not had success at tackling those needs around feral animal management, specifically with fencing. There's a lot of eligibility requirements and actually programs that just don't fund this type of thing. So, looking to the state to kind of come behind some of the gaps within the federal support would be helpful here. I think, again, this bill asks for collaboration, but we do feel like collaboration does happen. So we ask these committees to please consider bringing back the strategic plan and the report to the legislature, because then we can actually start moving on some of these directives that might come out from these discussions. Other than that, just wanting to, again, express our support for local producers and this huge need that exists. Thank you.
Next is Brian Miyamoto from Hawaii Farm Bureau.
Thank you, chairs, vice chairs, members of the committees. Brian Miyamoto here on behalf of the Hawaii Farm Bureau. We'll stand on a written testimony in support of this measure, just highlighting, again, the impact that these invasive species are having, not to just to agriculture, which is where we're coming from, but also our fragile ecosystem. Maui County is dealing with axis deer. All of our counties and our farmers from all our islands report on the feral pig populations and increases in the damage that they're doing to their crops and to the livestock in their farming operations. Something that the legislature did fund previously was rose-ringed parakeet. That was mostly for Kauai. The funding went to Kauai. But here in Oahu, we've got quite a bit of the rose-ringed parakeet and it's spreading. And we heard the damage that they're doing to many of the fruit crops on Kauai. And we hate to see that on all the other neighbor islands. And that happens. So we do ask for your support. I believe this is an important issue, important measure. The feral animal populations are negatively impacting our agriculture community and our ecosystems. So we do ask for your support. Thank you for this opportunity to testify.
CZ Jung from Roar Rescue of Animal Rights.
Good afternoon.
Aloha.
Good afternoon, chairs and vice chairs and members of the committee. My name is Zhi Xiong, and I'm an animal rescue service provider, and I operate an animal rescue organization called ROAR, Rescue of Animal Rights, located in Kalihi, Palama. I stand on my written testimony in support of the measure, and I'd just like to add, when it comes to animal management practices, exploiting and eradicating shouldn't be a viable option. Instead, it could be advised to the legislature to consider implementing initiatives and efforts to protect and care for all animal species and wildlife, because every life matters. Each animal contributes differently to the environment in positive and negative ways. It is necessary to conduct research studies and to gather evidence, to gather data about each feral animal species to be managed. It is necessary to learn about the ecological significance of each species and its impact and contribution to the environment, and then form an objective narrative to shape the plan. Feral cats were painted in a bad light by many in the community with the recent measure HB 1987. Yet animal rescues across the island assist with the cat crisis by rescuing ferals. And then there are some who adopt them to people who then train the kittens to be ESAs, emotional support animals. ESAs is approved medically by psychologists, and ESAs provides joy and happiness. At the federal level, the US Department of Justice and American with Disabilities Act recognizes that emotional support animals provide a medical service. For these reasons, it can be concluded feral cats have tremendous intrinsic value. Wild pigs are bad for the environment because they cause a lot of damage to the landscape. Yet they eat a lot of vegetation, causing native plant extinction as well as soil erosion. But wild pigs are responsible for dispersing seeds and planting new plants and trees and
Susie,
flowers.
I'm sorry to stop you, but your time is up. Thank you very much for
okay.
your testimony. Mahalo.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next is David Smith from DLNR.
Good afternoon, David Smith, Administrator with the Division of Forestry and Wildlife. The division and the department recognize the impacts of feral animals across the landscape, and we support this measure. We stand our written testimony, and we have staff available if you have any questions. Thank you.
Mahalo, David. Next is Emma Ewan from DLNR. In support, Clayton Kubo. Clayton in the house on Zoom is in support. Okay. Okay, members, any questions? Okay, there were a total of 13 in support, 0 opposed, with 2 comments. Moving on to the last measure on the 1 o'clock agenda, joint agenda, is HB 1988 HD2, relating to coral, prohibits the sale, import, or export of coral products with certain exceptions, requires the Department of Land and Natural Resources to amend its admin rules accordingly. First up is Leimana Damate from Hawaii State Ahamoku.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. My name is Leimana Damate with the Hawaii State Ahamoku. You have our written testimony before you, and we stand in support of this measure and are available to answer questions if needed. Thank you.
Mahalo. Inga Gibson from Pono Advocacy for the Fishes and 14 other organizations.
Mahalo, Chair Gabbard, Chair Inouye, committee members. We'd really like to support this measure, but unfortunately, as drafted, it is we'll have to oppose unless it's amended. As it stands, the bill would actually prohibit the sale of coral products and coral jewelry if they are not from Hawaii, but allow for the harvesting and sale of coral jewelry and products if they are from Hawaii. Obviously, this is contrary to the intent of the bill, which is to protect our local natural resources, and also would create likely much more demand, and with that harvesting and concern about poaching and other criminal activity. As drafted, it's also completely unenforceable. How would DoCare differentiate between the many different species of black coral, where the product originated, the origin of the coral, from those that were from Hawaii and not from Hawaii? The law, we believe, must really apply equally across all coral products. In addition, the claims of sustainability need to be challenged. The federal stock assessment has not been conducted since back in 2002, 2004. There's been a moratorium on gold coral harvesting because of overharvesting and also habitat loss. And black coral, to my knowledge, has not had any recent stock assessments at the state level. You may have actually noticed an article in Civil Beat a few weeks ago regarding a new species of black coral that was just discovered in Hawaii waters, which was misidentified. The scientists in those cases say we need to use all caution because we really still don't know much about coral except that they're very long-lived. Some of our corals are more than 4,000 years old. They are the redwoods of Hawaii. We do not object to the existing exemptions and those that we've clarified in our testimony. that would absolutely allow for extraction, for research, for education, for replanting, for anything for, you know, non-commercial purposes.
Thank you, Inga. Sorry to cut you off, but your time's up. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next is Brian Nielsen from DLNR, David Sakota from DLNR.
Aloha, chairs, members of the committee. Brian Nielsen, Administrator for Division of Aquatic Resources, representing the department on this measure. We stand on our written testimony in support, and we're available for questions. Thank you.
Mahalo, Brian. David Sakota, DLNR.
Thank you. Nothing further to add. Available for questions.
Mahalo. Ted Boland from the Hawaii Reef and Ocean Coalition.
Thank you, Chair Gabbard, Chair Inoue, Vice Chairs, and members of the committee. Ted Boland for the Hawaii Reef and Ocean Coalition. We are a group that is concerned about protecting corals, and we would like to support this bill, but unfortunately it's drafted. It would be worse for the Hawaii corals than the status quo. When you prohibit sale of corals, commercial sale of corals from elsewhere, but allow them from Hawaii, that puts a huge pressure on Hawaii corals for the supply. And this is detrimental. So the bill needs to amend it and apply evenly across all corals, regardless of source, for commercial sale. Currently, anyone who has a commercial marine license, I believe, can harvest coral. And the enforcement is nearly impossible. So this would lead to what is in essence open season on Hawaii coral and be very detrimental. So please amend this bill to prohibit harvesting of Hawaii coral, except for research, rehabilitation, and cultural activities under special activities permits issued by the Division of Aquatic Resources, and prohibit commercial sales in Hawaii of all corals, of all Hawaii corals, regardless of source. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. We are available for questions. In my written testimony, I've given some specific references to how the law language should change. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Max Phillips.
Aloha, Mai
Center for
Kako.
Biological Diversity.
Aloha, Mai Kako, Chair Gabbard, Chair Inoue, and members of the committees. My name is Max Phillips. I am the Hawaii Director and Staff Attorney for the Center for Biological Diversity. We use both science, policy, and environmental litigation to ensure that our endangered, threatened, and native species here in Hawaii and the habitats they depend on to survive are protected. The center would like to be able to support this bill, but unfortunately can only offer comments and added amendments in our written testimony in order to do so. As written, the bill would only protect corals coming from outside of the state of Hawaii, which, as others have testified, would have a detrimental impact to our in-state corals. Reviewing the testimony, it seems to be that there's some confusion as to the sustainability of our fisheries here as it relates especially to black coral. In fact, the Department of Land and Natural Resources' own Hawaii State Wildlife Action Plan lists that the leading threats to our black coral is over-harvesting, and that it's considered a significant threat. Additionally, with the increase of availability of deeper scuba diving abilities for fishers, there is added pressures on these corals in addition to the introduced species threatening these black corals, alien species known as snowflake coral, which is able to dominate this black coral habitat. This, in addition to the trends of global climate change, ocean acidification, and warmings, is really putting extreme pressures on our corals. And so I urge this committee to consider the amendments that are crucial to protect our Hawaiian corals, just like protecting corals outside of Hawaii through this bill, and to amend and pass. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. And that's it on our testifiers. Members, any questions?
Question, Chair.
Senator
Yeah.
Ocasio?
I have a question for Brian Nielsen, DLNR. Aloha.
Yes, aloha.
Just hearing the concerns of the many ocean organizations that have written in their read of this particular measure as doing the opposite and not protecting Hawaii corals, could you address that and then your in light of that, your continued support around that?
Yes, thank you. And we certainly join the voices of, sustaining coral and the concerns about the long-term conservation of coral. But I do think there's some confusion with interpretation of the bill. So corals, the take of corals is prohibited by state law, HAR 13-95-70, unless you have a special activity. And so that'd be education or research. So I'm not clear on how this bill would reverse current law protecting corals. Currently, it is legal to harvest black coral with a commercial marine license as long as the black coral is at least 3/4 of an inch or greater. And then there's also the ability to apply for a permit for pink or gold coral harvest, but that's not something that we have issued any time that I'm aware of, and not something that we intend to issue. So under the current bill, section 2, line 15, state permitted harvesting, that might be redundant with allowing a collection permit for research or education. But it wouldn't cover the license collection of black coral. But this would potentially allow the harvest of pink or gold coral. So I'm not sure if that answered your question, but I do see some differences in interpretation of current state law and what the bill states as well. And David Sakota is here too, that could weigh in.
All right.
Yep.
All right.
Chair, I have another question. I would actually.
We're at time.
We have 7 minutes to do decision making. Is it a?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I think we gotta cut it.
Yeah.
See what your question is to do.
Go ahead.
That was for Inga Gibson.
Okay.
Yes,
If
mahalo,
you can
Senator.
just clarify the response to that as well in terms of your folks' presentation. But we have to keep it short. Yeah.
Mahalo,
Thank you.
Senator. Yes, and our amendments in our testimony would clarify that it would be prohibited to harvest black coral. There is harvesting now of black coral, which is done under a commercial marine license, as David Sakota knows. So without the amendment, it would continue to allow for the harvesting of black coral. So that is why that amendment is critical. The other part of this is that obviously the state can't prohibit the feds, NOAA, from issuing these permits, and that's fine. We just want to make sure that anything that is harvested in federal waters isn't allowed to be sold, because that's another massive loophole. So there is current commercial harvesting under marine license, anybody $100, and that's what we're trying to prohibit. It needs to, close all harvesting of local and all sale of local coral as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair.
We'll take a brief recess for some decision making. Reconvening the 1 p.m. joint with AEN and Waterland. I'll turn it over to Senator Inouye.
Okay, for the first three bills before us, Chair's recommendation on HB 1497, this is the invasive species. Members, our recommendation is to pass this with amendments, just perfecting the effective date to July 1st, 2022. Any discussions? Okay, hearing none, then for the Committee of Water and Land, Chair goes aye with amendments.
Okay, Vice Chair votes aye. Senator Misalucha.
Aye.
Senator Revere.
Aye.
Senator Favela.
Aye.
Recommendation adopted, Chair.
Thank you.
Same recommendation for AEN. Chair votes aye. Vice Chair.
Chair votes aye. Senator Ocasio.
Aye.
Senator Rose.
Aye.
Bella.
Aye.
Motion is adopted.
Thank you, members.
Okay, thank you for HB 1769. This is the rapid Ojia death. Chair's recommendation is to pass these amendments with just perfecting the effective date to July 1st, 2022. Any discussions? Hearing none, Vice Chair for the vote, Chair goes aye.
Okay, with 5 members present, any reservations? Any opposition? Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you.
And same recommendation for AEN. Any concerns, questions? Chair votes aye. With amendments, yes.
Okay.
Vice Chair.
Okay, Vice Chair goes aye. Senator Ocasio.
Aye.
Senator Rose. Senator Favela.
Aye.
Motion's adopted.
Okay, thank you. For HB 2431, this is the Sustainable Food Systems. Chair's recommendation is, we have several on this one, perfecting the effective date to July 1st, 2022. And we'll also adopt the Hawai'i Fishermen's Alliance for Conservation and Traditions proposed amendments. And these are additional to the working group. One representative of the Hawai'i Fishermen's Alliance, which is HVAC, to be selected by the president of the Hawai'i Fishermen's Alliance for Conservation and Tradition. We'd like to add one representative of the commercial fishing sector of the state of Hawaii, and this is to be selected by the administrator of DLNR Division Aquatic Resources. We also want to adopt the Hawaii Farmers Union proposed amendments to add a representative to the working group of HFUU. And we'd also like to reflect members. I did mention that the Ahumoku's written testimony will reflect in the committee report as well. Okay. Any discussions? Hearing none, Water and Land, Chair votes aye on HB 2431.
Okay, with all members of the committee present, any reservations? Any opposition?
Reservation.
Reservation for Senator Favela. Any opposition? Recommendations adopted, Chair.
Thank you.
Same recommendation for AEN. Any discussion? Chair votes aye.
Vice Chair goes aye. Senator Ocasio.
Aye.
Senator Rose.
Aye.
Senator Favela.
Reservation.
Thank you, members. And moving on to HB 1705 HD1 relating to ag park leases. The chair's recommendation will be to pass as is. Any discussion? Chair votes aye. Vice Chair?
Vice Chair goes aye. Senator Ocasio.
Reservations.
Senator Rose. Reservation. Senator Favela.
No.
Motion's adopted.
Okay, Committee on Water and Land, Chair's recommendation is the same. Any discussion for HB 1705? Hearing none, Chair votes aye.
Okay, with 5 members present, any reservations?
Reservations.
Reservations.
The reservation for Senator Misalucha, Senator Revere, and Senator Favela.
No.
Oh, sorry. Okay, all others voting yes, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you.
On HB 1721 HD1 relating to feral animal management, Chair's recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion? Chair votes aye. Vice Chair?
Vice Chair goes aye. Senator Ocasio.
Aye.
Senator Rose. Aye. Senator Favela.
Aye.
Motion's adopted.
Okay, thank you. Committee on Water and Land, same recommendation to HB 1721. Chair votes aye, pass as is.
Okay, with 5 members present, any reservation? Any opposition? Recommendation adopted.
Moving on to the final measure, HB 1988 HD2 relating to coral. The chair's recommendation will be to pass with amendments on page 1, line 16 to 17. Add the word harvest to the list of prohibited activities. Page 2, line 4B1, add harvested, the word harvested, to list of exemptions for certain purposes. Line 15, delete state permitted to clarify exemption for, quote, state harvesting under a special activity permit for non-commercial purposes, unquote. And line 16, clarify the exemption for continued issuance of federal permits for coral products or harvesting if for non-commercial purposes.
HB 1988 HD2, it requires the Department of Land and Natural Resources to amend its admin rules accordingly no later than December 31st, 2022. And so I'd also like to recommend that we extend that date to December 31st, 2024, as requested by DLNR. Any discussion?
Chair, so this is going to be able to protect the Hawaii region?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Chair votes aye, Vice Chair.
The members present, any voting with opposition or reservation? If not, motion adopted.
Thank you. For the Committee on Water and Land, same recommendation on HB 1988 to pass with amendments. Any discussions? Chair votes aye.
Okay, with 5 members present, any reservations? Any opposition? Recommendation adopted.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
And that
members. This concludes the hearing notice for water, land, and agriculture.
Mahalo.
Mahalo.